Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. Today we're going to go into the book of 2 Kings, the 12th chapter. And, as we read in the 11th chapter, dealing with Athaliah, right, the queen of Judah, and her treacherous ways, but how soon it caught up to her and she ended up being put to death. So this sort of goes into the, a brief summary, right, of some of the things that happened under the reign of Joash, right, otherwise known as Jehoash. And this was the son of, what was it? Let's see here. Yeah, Ahaziah, right? So the one who was saved, by the skin of his teeth, so to speak, as Athaliah was slaying all of the heirs to the throne. So this is 2 Kings chapter 12, verse 1. In the 7th year of Jehu, Jehoash began to reign, and 40 years reigned he in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. So at this point, right, you had Jehu, which was anointed by the prophet that Elisha sent to go and anoint him and run out of there, right, as fast as possible. So Jehu, after being anointed, goes and basically slays Joram, right, and Ahaziah, right, the king of the northern kingdom and the king of the southern kingdom at that time. And then he continues to have Jezebel slain, and then followed by the rest of the house of Ahab, to fulfill the word of the Lord there. So Jehu does this, and because of this, Athaliah takes that opportunity, having seen her son Ahaziah dead, to slay all of his children except for Joash, so she can reign. So she reigns for 6 years. Meanwhile, Jehu is also reigning in the northern kingdom. And after she's basically put to death, and Joash comes up into power, right? He begins to reign at this point. This is sort of where we are in verse 1, right? That's why it mentions the 7th year of Jehu is when Jehoash began to reign. So verse 2, and Jehoash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord Yahweh all his days, wherein Jehoiada the priest instructed him. Because remember, he was pretty much raised by the priest, right? Because that's where he was hidden in the temple of the Lord until he was about 6 or 7. He was pretty much raised there. So you can imagine Jehoiada instilling in him or bringing him up in the right way according to the ways of the Lord. Verse 3, but the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places. So though Jehoash followed the ways of the Lord, and implemented ways of fearing the Lord and serving the Lord, he didn't, take down the high places, and these high places were like places of worship, where you had Israelites that would go and worship there. Sometimes there would be groves, sometimes there would be altars set up on like hills or mountaintops, and they would go and worship there. So that wasn't taken down. Verse 4, and Jehoash said to the priests, all the money of the dedicated things that is brought into the house of the Lord Yahweh, even the money of every one that passeth the account, the money that every man is set at, and all the money that cometh into any man's heart to bring into the house of the Lord. Now, here he mentions the money of everyone that passeth the account. Now, when you look this up in some of these other translations to get a better sense of the wording here, for example, in the NKJV, it reads, and Jehoash said to the priests, all the money of the dedicated gifts that are brought into the house of the Lord Yahweh, each man's census money, right? Each man's assessment's money, and all the money that a man that a man purposes in his heart to bring into the house of the Lord. So you had like quote unquote donations, right, or alms in a way, which is one aspect, and that would be what comes into a man's heart to bring to the house of the Lord. Hey, I want to donate this or give this to the house of the Lord. And then you had the census money, and then that goes back to Exodus, the 30th chapter in the law here. And I'll read it real quick. So I believe this would be Wa Yahweh La'amar al-Mashah La'amar, right? Something along those lines. But basically, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, when thou takest the sum of the children of Israel after their number, that's the census, then shall they give every man a ransom for his soul unto the Lord Yahweh. So like a tax. When thou numberest them, and there shall be no plague among them when thou numberest them. This they shall give, every one that passeth among them that are numbered, half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary. Here, right, a shekel is 20 gerahs, and half shekel shall be the offering of the Lord. Every one that passeth among them that is numbered, from 20 years old and above, shall give an offering unto the Lord. So that's basically the census money, right? And this is being given unto the Lord as is continued toward the temple being built. This would be brought or given to the priest here for the sake of the temple, as we're reading of in 2 Kings here. Verse 5. So as Jehoash is telling the priest, let the priest take it to them, so the money that comes in, so let him receive this money, every man of his acquaintance. And when you go into this word acquaintance, it goes into like a friend, or some translations are like a donor, or familiar. And in this case, you can imagine those that, as we read in verse 4, it comes into their mind or their spirit to say, hey, I'm going to donate or give this amount, to the priest or to the temple of the Lord. Obviously, the Most High is not spending that money, right? That's going towards the care of the priest. So the king here, right, Jehoash says, okay, let the priest take the money, right? And, the ones that come in via these like alms or whatnot, and pretty much all the money that comes in, and let them repair the breaches of the house, wheresoever any breach shall be found. Because this temple was built, right? But it's a building. Even though it's a temple, it's still a building. And so it rains, right? When there's rain or, just over time, wear and tear, this can lead to like leaks or breaches here and there, and so on and so forth. So the king says, hey, use that money to fix and repair this house so it's nice and strong. But it was so that in the 23rd year of King Jehoash, the priest had not repaired the breaches of the house. So in the 7th year, he told him to do this. And as years went on, up until his 23rd year, the repairs still weren't done. Then King Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest and the other priests, and said unto them, why repair ye not the breaches of the house? Now therefore receive no more money of your acquaintance, but deliver it for the breaches of the house. So what have you guys been doing? All these years, you still haven't fixed the house? So from now going on, all the money that comes in, the donations, all that, you guys don't use that anymore. Just put it all towards fixing the temple. And the priest consented, and received no more money of the people, neither to repair the breaches of the house. Meaning they agreed, okay, you know what, the money won't come to us, right? So we'll let the handling of the repairs and all that money that comes in, others will take responsibility for that, but it won't be on us anymore. But Jehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in the lid of it, and set it beside the altar on the right side, as one that cometh into the house of the Lord. So when you come to the temple, there's an altar, right? And so what Jehoiada did was he just basically just put a chest with a hole in there, so you can just drop, whatever amount you want to put in there when you come to, say, make a sacrifice or whatever the case is, or even come to worship at the temple. And the priests that kept the door put therein all the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. So these are the ones that would, be at the door, because there were certain areas that not everybody can go into. But anyway, at the end of the day, right, however much money was received, then they would put that into this chest and then, continue on. And it was so when they saw that there was much money in the chest. It's like, when you have a small can, piggy bank, and you just, you have some coins after the end of the day, you drop it in there. And over time it gets heavy. And then you realize, oh, wow, you have a lot, of coins in here, and you can start to utilize this. And it was so when they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribe and the high priest came up, and they put up in bags. So the king's scribe right here, the scribe here is more like the assistant or the secretary, but also, obviously keeping track of all the different things that are going on and keeping the king informed and so on. So he, along with the high priest, they pull up, right? They put as it says, and they put up in bags and told the sum, or told the money that was found in the house of the Lord. So they took it out the chest, bagged it up, found, okay, this is this amount. And they gave the money, being told, so in this case being recorded, okay, this is how much money there is, into the hands of them that did the work, that had the oversight of the house of the Lord Yahweh. And they laid it out to the carpenters and builders that wrought upon the house of the Lord. So since the priests no longer were in charge of this, there were others that were appointed to basically be the ones in charge, overseeing the repairs in the temple. And so the money was given to those overseers, and they used that money to pay the carpenters, the builders, the actual workers who were working in the house. So when it says that they wrought, right, that wrought upon the house, the wrought meaning like those that did the work. And to masons and hewers of stone, and to buy timber and hewed stone to repair the breaches of the house of the Lord Yahweh, and for all that was laid out for the house to repair it. Howbeit, there was not made for the house of the Lord bowls of silver, snuffers, basins, trumpets, any vessels of gold or vessels of silver, of the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. But they gave that to the workmen, and repaired therewith the house of the Lord. So they weren't able to use the money to, to make these things, right? The bowls, and so on and so forth, because that money went towards those that were actually repairing the breaches, the house. Moreover, they reckoned not with the men, into whose hand they delivered the money to be bestowed on workmen, for they dealt faithfully. So reckon meaning to keep track and sort of record and make sure, okay, how much did you do here? What did you do with this? They didn't need to do that with these overseers, right? Because these were the men, as it says, into whose hand they delivered the money. So these were the overseers that they gave the money to. They didn't need to track them down and get record papers and receipts here and there. All right, it says to be bestowed on the workmen, because that's what the overseers did, right? They paid workmen, for they dealt faithfully. Right, so they didn't lie or try to cheat or scam or any of that, and that's why they trusted them to be able to do this without being on their case, so to speak. The trespass money and sin money was not brought into the house of the Lord Yahweh; it was the priests. So the money that would be coming in and brought to the house in the sense of being used for the temple business was not. The trespass money and sin money was not included in that. And when you go to the book of Leviticus, if you're curious about this trespass money, in Leviticus 5, I'm going to read it real quick. And the Lord Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, if a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the holy things of the Lord Yahweh, then he shall bring for his trespass unto the Lord a ram without blemish out of the flocks, with thy estimation by shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. And he shall make amends for the harm that he hath done in the holy thing, and shall add the fifth part thereto, which is going to be, I think, 20%, right? And give it unto the priest, and the priest shall make an atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. Now, if you look this up, let's say even this one here in the NLT, right? It says, actually, let's look it up in the, let's do verse 15 first. Right, it says here, if one of you commits a sin by unintentionally defiling the Lord's sacred property, you must bring a guilt offering to the Lord. The offering must be your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of equal value with silver as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel. Verse 16. You must make restitution for the sacred property you have harmed by paying for the loss plus an additional 20%. When you give the payment to the priest, he will purify you with the ram sacrificed as a guilt offering, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. So there was a concept there as well, right? You would obviously bring the ram, you know, for your atonement, but you also have to pay for the damage, you know. So going back, you know, and there's other references there. You know, you can simply do a cross-reference on some of these verses, and you'll see as an example here, right? Leviticus 5:15 and 16, even going down to 18. Let's see. Yeah, so there's other precepts that go into that. So continuing back in 2 Kings chapter 12. Where are we? I just lost. Okay. There we go. Verse 17. Right. So that money that came in would go to the priests and not directly to just, you know, like the repairs that were being done here. Verse 17. Then Hazael, king of Syria, went up. Right. The same Hazael that Elisha stared down, you know, because he knew what Hazael would end up doing against Israel. Went up and fought against Gath and took it. And Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. So he came down there. You know, we all know where Gath is at, right? Say Gath, Bible map. Let's see, where is it? There's a lot going on over there. All right, maybe I can take a look at this one here. So we see here, you have Gath over here within the quote-unquote territory of the Philistines. So after taking that, he set his face to come towards Jerusalem, okay, within the territory of Judah. And when the king heard that, or he found out, this is what he did, right? So, and Jehoash, king of Judah, took all the hallowed things that Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Ahaziah, his fathers, kings of Judah, had dedicated, and his own hallowed things, and all the gold that was found in the treasures of the house of the Lord and in the king's house, and sent it to Hazael, king of Syria, and he went away from Jerusalem. So these would be like, you know, silver materials, gold materials, things that were, like it says, dedicated, hallowed, you know, for the Lord or the temple, or even, as it says, of his own. But these would have to be things that were, you know, like treasures. And that's why it was enough to suffice Hazael's, you know, his hunger here, so to speak, and allow him, sort of bribe him to leave and not attack Jerusalem. And the rest of the acts of Joash and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And his servants arose and made a conspiracy and slew Joash in the house of Milo, which goeth down to Silla. And with scenes like this, you can always think back to like Game of Thrones, for an example. And yeah, it's one sentence here, right, in one verse, but this is something that you might be watching a whole season of Game of Thrones and see how it all unfolds over the span of months or even years. How the servants talk amongst each other, and there's somebody whispering things into this person's ear, and then before you know it, they like poison the king, or like stab him up, or hire somebody to have him assassinated, or whatever the case is. But you sort of get some visual as to how this like court intrigue plays out. Verse 21, for Josachar, the son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad, the son of Shomer, his servants smote him, and he died. And they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Amaziah his son reigned in his stead. And of course, being that this is recorded in here, that means that they found the culprits, and obviously, you can imagine there would have been a reasonable punishment for them for that. So anyway, that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Kings, the 12th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.